All right, welcome to our 18th episode of TACTALK. This is our second season. I'm your host, Alden Morris. So, in the first segment, we've got some updated news as opposed to yesterday and the day before, continuously still talking about Initiative 1639. However, I will be playing a clip from Dori Monson, as much as I can here, from Cairo Radio, from the Subaru Corridor Studios, from his show and his stance on Bob Ferguson and violating the constitutional rights of I-1639 citizens here in Washington, as well as how he's choosing to go after these sheriffs who are going to hold up the constitutional values in our country, but not go up after the politicians that are in some of these more liberal leading cities like Seattle or Olympia for violating, for example, our DOT constitutional rights, things like that. So, very interesting take on Dori Monson there. After that, then we'll be talking about the violations of oath of office. There's a petition that's been made to actually get Bob Ferguson out of office. So we're going to be pulling that up. We're going to be signing up for it. I'm going to share that link on both the Facebook and the YouTube for you guys to sign the petition to get Bob Ferguson out of our politics here in Washington State. And then we'll be talking about some more crap that Bob Ferguson has done, especially when the new one of the county sheriffs here has ripped Bob Ferguson a new one. And then finally, I want to talk about some current events here in the hometown. North Bend has been declared a state of emergency as National Guard has been deployed up to North Bend to help people get out of 2 feet of snow. So we'll be continuing talking about that as well. So we're going to get started here with Dori Monson's podcast. Tune in and take a listen.
The Big Lead, Dori Monson Show exclusive.
Well, we got the word while I was on the air yesterday that Attorney General Bob Ferguson says that he plans to go after sheriffs in this state who have said that they are not going to enforce the Citizens Initiative 1639, which, in my view, is clearly unconstitutional, and one of the sheriffs who could be in the crosshairs of the Attorney General. Let me take you to Clittitat County, where Sheriff Bob Songer joins us here on Cairo Radio. Sheriff, it's good to talk with you again.
You too, sir. You too.
What was your reaction? Well, I mean, before I get to your reaction, let me just kind of restate, in case people didn't hear you on my show a couple of weeks ago. Tell me the reason why you said you will not enforce 1639.
Well, I believe it violates the Washington State Constitution under the Second Amendment of Individuals and the U.S. Constitution. And as a sworn sheriff, I have an obligation not only to throw bad guys in jail, but also have an obligation to protect the constitutional rights of citizens that live in Clittitat County. And I strongly believe, or I wouldn't be doing all this, I strongly believe that I-1639 and some of the gun control stuff Bob Ferguson is trying to get through the legislature now, it will be in violation of the Second Amendment and the Washington State Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. So that's my position. And but in reference to Mr. Ferguson's letter, I haven't had the opportunity to read it in detail, but from what I understand, basically he's bullying the sheriffs and county prosecutors, apparently, by making threats that he's going to hold us accountable and we could be liable for civil action as well as criminal action. It's sad because I happened to talk here about 2 weeks ago with Mike Webb, who is a representative of Mr. Ferguson, because there was an article in the Goldendale paper that Mr. Ferguson, Attorney General, had made a comment that he wanted to, he was looking forward to prosecuting me. So anyway, they read that, Mr. Webb, he's one of the chief attorneys there, for Ferguson, and he called in a big panic saying that they did not say that, and actually they didn't, because what happened, it was somebody that had contacted their office, and they said, what they did say, though, is they're aware of my statements and they're monitoring it closely.
Oh,
which means in law, yeah.
You got Daddy watching you now, Sheriff.
Yeah. In the law enforcement world, that means they're investigating you. So, anyway, Mr. Webb got done with our conversation, and I said, Mr. Webb, I got two questions. He said, what's that? And I said, are you guys investigating me? Oh, no, Sheriff, we're not investigating you. No. I said, well, I got one more question. Is the Attorney General going to arrest me? Oh, no, not at all. No, besides that, he doesn't have the authority to arrest you. I said, well, I was wondering about that. So then comes this letter from Mr. Ferguson.
Yes.
So they're talking out of both sides of their mouth, apparently.
Well, here's what I've said, Sheriff. I want to get your reaction to this, because I have said for years now, and I consider myself a pretty good watchdog of government, and I've been covering, this region for 24 years now on this show. I consider Bob Ferguson the most dangerous elected official I've ever seen in our state, and I'll tell you why. He's using the highest legal office in the state to be a protection racket for the left and to be a pit bull against anything that is center or right of center. And when we have an attorney general where justice is not blind, where the Constitution does not matter, and where he chooses who he goes after based on their political or social ideology, I think that's as dangerous and as scary as politics and politicians get.
Oh, I totally agree. In addition to that, there's some idea that Mr. Ferguson they planned to the far left so he can get elected governor.
Right.
And so, that kind of game is going on, I'm sure. And I don't know Bob Ferguson very well. I've only met him on one occasion at a meeting he was talking at. So I don't know him that well, but what I see him doing is real alarming. He is trampling all over citizens' Second Amendment. And even the ones that voted for this, they don't have any idea that they think it's a good deal and they're going to get protected if they go on with Mr. Ferguson 1639. And it's nonsense. I've got 48 years in law enforcement, and I can tell you 1639 and all the rest of these anti-gun laws they're trying to pass will not do one iota in making it safer.
No, I know that. Yeah.
All right, and we're going to leave that there for right now. What we're going to do is we're going to continue a little bit more on the second half of the show here, because unfortunately I don't have as many sponsors, so I'm not going to be going as long as segments. But before we cut this segment out, I do want to read this from you. This is the petitions.whitehouse.gov. Violations of oath of office, Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson. This was created February 12th, 2019. Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson continually refused to uphold the Washington State U.S. Constitution in violation of his oath of office. In quotes, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and the laws of the state of Washington, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Attorney General to the best of my ability, end quote. Among many other violations, Attorney General Ferguson has repeatedly violated the U.S. and Washington State Constitution by infringing on and impairing the rights of Washington's residents to bear arms. The Washington State Constitution declares, the rights of the individual citizen to bear arms in defense of himself or the state shall not be impaired. A.G. Ferguson refuses to protect the right of the Washingtonians. Now, what I'm doing right now is I'm signing my first name, my last name, and I'm putting in my email address because I, too, agree that if we can petition him out of office, that'd be great. As of right now, we need 97,923 signatures left out of the 100,000. There are currently 2,077 signatures. Make that 2,078. I just signed mine up. So I'm going to leave the link at the bottom of this podcast for you, whether you're listening in through the YouTube or the Facebook Live. And it's going to be under the petitions.gov White House. So do take a moment while you're listening to this to pull up this link, sign your name, share it to your Facebook, go above and beyond to this one, because if we can get the 100,000 signatures, then we can go from there. Not only just winning the battle against getting 1639 dropped, but then also getting Bob Ferguson, as you've heard from Dori Monson's own words, one of the most dangerous politicians that's been around, and that's using a high law office to protect these backdoor dealings. So we'll be right back after our sponsor. Please listen in. We will be continuing with the rest of Dori Monson's show. It is an 18-minute long show, but we're going to keep it short. So we'll be right back. Thanks. Bees Combat Systems at beescombatsystems.com. Protecting those who prepare. 801-987-0893 for custom body armor carriers and tactical gear for military, law enforcement, contractors, corporate security, responsible citizens, and border patrol. Beast Combat Systems at beastcombatsystems.com, 801-987-0893. All right, welcome back to our second season of our 18th episode of TACTALK. I'm your host, Alden Morris. We left off the first segment listening to the Dori Monson show at the Cairo Radio at the Cairo Super Studios. And we had a couple guests on. One of the sheriffs of Kittitas, or Kittap, however you pronounce that county down there, because Attorney General Bob Ferguson has chosen to go after specific sheriffs who are refusing to enforce Initiative 1639 because it doesn't go along with his own agenda. So we're going to continue off with the rest of the show. It's 18 minutes long. We're about 6 minutes into it. So I'm going to play up until a certain point so that way I can continue my segment. In my segment here, the next half of the second segment, we're going to be going over how Spokane County Sheriff rips Attorney General Ferguson a new one over Initiative 1639 because just the simplicities that you can point out in a lot of these legislation that show that it's unconstitutionality. So we're going to continue with the Dori Monson show. Give it a listen.
Yeah, crooks are going to get guns, and they're going to create a black market for guns if they make too restrictive that are.
I absolutely agree with you. One other issue here, Sheriff. Bob Ferguson, I mean, the state's marijuana legalization, which happened via initiative, just like this gun law, it's a violation of federal drug laws. You have the King County prosecutor, the Snohomish County prosecutor, that have unilaterally legalized drugs. They've said we will not prosecute any drug possession, personal possession amounts. And it just strikes me as odd that when it comes to drugs, Bob Ferguson is fine with politicians going off on their own and deciding which laws they will and will not enforce. But when an Eastern Washington sheriff makes the exact same determination, he threatens you.
Oh, yeah. Well, and here's the other thing, too. He brought up the marijuana thing, I think, in his letter. Somebody said that anyway. And do I enforce, the rule of law? Do I enforce the marijuana laws in the state of Washington? Yes, because it does not violate your constitutional rights.
Right.
Like 1639 does, and these anti-gun laws. When they start tinkering around with the Second Amendment or any other amendment of our Constitution, that's dangerous territory.
Sheriff, I appreciate the stand you're taking, and if the AG tries to mess with you, you will have an ally in me and my radio show here.
Well, I thank you very much.
All right.
I have no idea what Mr. Ferguson has in mind, but it's in his ballpark. So.
Okay, all right, we'll watch it closely. Sheriff, good talking with you again.
You do. Be safe.
All right, you do the same, sir. Bob Songer, he is the sheriff in Klickitat County. Now, let me follow up on this a little bit because it is interesting. And this is where I'm going to back up what I've said about Bob Ferguson being the most dangerous politician I have ever covered here in Washington. Because when you do what I just said to the sheriff, when you use the AG's office as a weapon against anybody who doesn't think the way you believe they should, when you use it as a protection racket for everybody on the left, and I'll give you a prime example of that. Dan Satterberg is the prosecutor here in King County. And Satterberg has legalized drugs, as they have done in Snohomish County. They've legalized personal possession amounts of drugs. And with that, we've got a rampant drug problem. Drug vagrants are raping people. They're killing people. We've attracted criminals from all around the country because of our drug policy. But it's far more insidious than that. Did you bump up the Satterberg, Nicole? Oh, Nicole's working on some other audio right now. I want to remind, here, I've got it. Dan Satterberg went on NPR, and he said that he will not charge illegals in King County with DUI. And why is that, as he told NPR?
Sometimes those, if they are resolved at, for instance, a reckless driving or a negligent driving, they will greatly reduce that person's vulnerability to deportation.
So if an illegal is charged with DUI, they could be deported for that. And Dan Satterberg doesn't want illegals deported because of this bizarre sanctuary policy that we have around here. And so he has instructed his prosecutors here in King County.
Fundamentally, it's a matter of justice. It's not fair that two people who commit the same offense, one may risk being sent back to a country where they haven't been since they were a child.
I mean, can you believe this? It's not fair to charge an illegal with DUI because they could then be deported. So, an American citizen, a taxpayer, here in King County, you drive drunk, you can get charged with DUI. An illegal who sneaks into this country and drives drunk is the same level of risk as an American citizen driving drunk here, but an illegal will not be charged with DUI in King County. Let me play for you that soundbite again. But Dan Satterberg says it's not fair to charge an illegal with DUI. One more listen for you.
Fundamentally, it's a matter of justice. It's not fair that two people who commit the same offense, one may risk being sent back to a country where they haven't been since they were a child.
That's because they came into this country illegally. And so here you have, because sanctuary is a Democrat-endorsed policy of Inslee and Durkin and Dow and Satterberg. Does the Attorney General say, whoa, no, hold on. You can't enforce DUI laws against American citizens, but not enforce them against illegals? Does Bob Ferguson say that? No, because it's a leftist cause.
All right, we're going to end that there. So it kind of diverts there. That's the rest of it. It's got another, looks like 6 minutes at least on his podcast there. What I am going to do is going to read some excerpts from the Liberty Park Press. This article was written February 13, 2019 by Dave Workman. It covers the Spokane sheriff. Bear with me if I pronounce it wrong. Ozzy Kinizovich. And some of the things he's pointed out, what the unconstitutional, what's specifically unconstitutional in Initiative 1639. Because Bob Ferguson says that all these sheriffs are refusing to obey it, but they haven't pointed out what they're not going to obey, what's actually wrong with it. Well, here we go. Kinizovich says the initiative storage requirement is also unenforceable because, quote, they essentially didn't define what safe storage is, end quote. How are we supposed to enforce something that isn't defined? Kinizovich told the Spokane Spokesman Review in response to Ferguson's enforcement demand that the Democrat Attorney General is playing gun politics rather than protecting citizens' rights. It's just another example of grandstanding from this Attorney General's office, Kinizovich told the newspaper. He essentially reiterated the same thing to Liberty Park Press, adding that Ferguson seems to turn a blind eye to issues or arguments that do not go along, with his agenda. So that's exactly what it is. So yeah, so Bob Ferguson is exactly turning a blind eye. He wants to sit there and repeat, like, there's just no logic when it comes to Attorney General Bob Ferguson, and it surprises me. That's why I had the Dori Monson's clip from his show on today about Initiative 1639, because what surprises me the most is I haven't been doing this long compared to people like Dori Monson. And Dori Monson, for 24 years, says that Bob Ferguson is one of the most dangerous politicians in Washington state politics. And this is one of my first experiences. So if we don't stop this now, it's just only going to get worse. So we got to continue fighting back. So like I said, we're going to end the segment here. I've provided the links to vote or petition, I should say, petition Bob Ferguson out of office for violating his oath of office. I've provided the links for the Liberty Park Press as well as the MyNorthWest.com for Dori Monson at the bottom of both the YouTube and the Facebook Live broadcast. And one last shout out, people who live in North Bend. I have some friends that are living up there that are part of the Foxtrot community, the AP3 Centers, SSCG, things like that. And you guys be careful up there. You guys stay safe. I know that there's word about the National Guard being deployed from 2 to 4 feet of snow is one of the last snowfall I heard. You guys are up in a higher mountain range. We're actually getting the snow melt down here, so it's just a matter of time. Stay in there, hang in there, reach out if you need anything. We'll make it happen. Guys, thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.